Looks like the recording has started, so welcome everybody. We are live. Welcome to this NAF Research and Tech Talk. It's my pleasure to have you here on the line today, and thanks for joining us live. For those that don't know me, my name's Minar. I'm the Director of Research and Reporting here at NAF. Before we get started, I just wanted to spend a moment to say thank you for joining us live for this talk. As always, we will be posting the recording for this talk to our NAF YouTube channel, to our NAF Educator Facebook page, and then also the NAF Research and Tech LinkedIn page after the event. In case you like it so much you want to share with others, or if you know someone that wanted to be here but couldn't, they can also view that recording. If you haven't done so already, please give us a visit on our NAF Educator Facebook page as well as our NAF Research and Tech LinkedIn page. I'm going to drop the links for those in the chat now, so if you want to just stay up to date on future talks or news coming out of NAF, feel free to join and follow each of those groups, and you'll be updated regularly. Furthermore, for those of you just joining us, in the chat, be sure to tell us who you are, where you're coming from today. We want to make a small learning community throughout our hour together, so don't be shy to introduce yourself. And if you've never attended one of these research and tech talks before, that's quite all right. Really, the purpose of these talks is to bring cutting-edge research and best practices to all of you, our NAF educators, our NAF staff, or anyone that wants to join for that matter of fact, so that you can use this information to improve your educational practice with your own students. As such, don't be afraid to ask questions. As Beth and I are talking throughout the hour today, we will do our best to answer any questions that come up live, kind of in the moment. Or if you would prefer to ask your question at the end, we do have some dedicated time for Q&A at the very end. If you want to come off mute at that point, share your video, say hi, you're welcome to do that as well, however you would like to engage with us. So let me introduce our guest today. Our guest today is Dr. Elizabeth, or Beth Glennie. Dr. Glennie is a senior research education analyst with RTI International, where she designs and leads studies that examine the implementation and the impact of U.S. educational policies on schools, teachers, and students. Many of her projects focus on factors that influence the success of students in secondary school, and then also access to post-secondary education for students and then also disadvantaged students as well. Over the past several years, and really the topic of today's talk, Beth has focused her research on the impact of earning industry certifications on students' post-secondary educational and employment outcomes. Dr. Glennie has also studied early college high schools, STEM schools, and then other new models and strategies that have proliferated across the country. Really, the study she does involves analyzing large national databases so that data is collected by states on specific interventions and programs. As if all of that wasn't enough, Dr. Glennie also develops surveys and interview protocols for students, teachers, and educational leaders, and she collaborates also with policymakers and service providers so that her studies can inform best practices actually in the field. I'm really happy to have the chance to sit down with Beth today and just have this chat around industry certifications and their impact on students. So Beth, if you want to come on screen and come off mute, we will highlight you for our audience. Let me spotlight you and admit one more person. Thanks very much for joining us today, Beth. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be able to talk with you about this project.
Yeah, I'm really excited because industry certification is always an area that I feel like I should know more about. I want to learn more about. So I'm hoping you can help, inform myself, our staff, and then also the educators in our network that are really interested in industry certifications. But before we dive into kind of the talk today, I'd like to give our guests just a chance to let our audience know a little bit more about you. I read your bio, but that's like kind of a stock, bio that we prepared. But can you just tell us a little bit more about your background and how you got into education research? Was it always something you wanted to do, or did you kind of take a roundabout path? What was your journey?
Sure. The path was fairly direct. I went to graduate school at Duke University, and I was always interested in the transition to adulthood, in adolescence and the opportunities they have, the challenges they face, and what difference it makes, because the actions that they take then really can make some differences in their life chances. My dear mentor, Al Kirchhoff, focused exclusively on educational tracking and progression from secondary school onwards, and so I worked with him as a student, and then worked on my dissertation, which was about the civic engagement changes during the transition to adulthood. And so this is I've always been interested in studying um, people at this age. And
Yeah, it's kind of when people start, developing their adult identity, right after high school,
Mhm.
making that transition.
It's also, if I may, it's also kind
Yeah,
of our last chance
that,
before they're out free. Like we still gotta have some control of them while they're in schools, right? We can give them opportunity, we can give them things, and it's harder to do that when they leave.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. If anyone in the audience has a college student, good luck controlling them, I'm sure. How about industry certifications, Beth? What kind of sparked your interest in industry certifications? Was there a specific event or perhaps a policy initiative that really sparked your interest, or was that always kind of part of the education landscape that you were most interested in?
To that a bit more recently. I had long been a little frustrated at a kind of a BA or nothing attitude that many of us seem to have. Like, oh well, you got to prepare them before your college. Well, not everyone's gonna do that. I was talking with the vice president of human resources at Duke University's medical center, which is a huge medical facility. And he told me he could get a surgeon, like top flight surgeon, with a snap of his fingers, because they didn't need a surgeon. He knows who they are. They know who Duke is. It's great. But he really struggled to get good lab technicians. I mean, for crying out loud. Like, why are we not in Durham High School saying, hey kids, if you go to get an associate degree and get the certifications, you could get a job at Duke. You would have benefits, steady pay. I mean, it would be a good, solid job. And I just felt that there was a real need for that. Then, but just this idea was in my head. Then RTI led the US OCTE funded National Center for Innovation in Career and Technical Education. And so I had an opportunity to propose a study. And I was talking with somebody in Florida about this CAPE Act. And so I asked OCTE if I could have some money to do a study on the rollout of this program in Florida, and got it. And then as that wound down, I applied for a research grant from IES at the US Department of Education, and I have been funded by that grant since. So that's
Wonderful.
how it happened.
Wonderful. And we will definitely dig into more of the data on that, whether, it's not a BA or nothing. There are viable pathways moving forward for students who decide that's not the route for them. So I'm really excited to get into some of that work you're doing. So thanks for sharing kind of your personal journey there and just what your interests were. And let's kind of kick off our conversation here. I was going to provide some brief background on what you already mentioned, the CAPE Act in Florida. So let me go ahead and do that. In essentially 2007, and you'll hopefully correct me anywhere I get the details wrong. In 2007, the Florida legislature passed the Career and Professional Education, or CAPE Act, to provide rigorous and relevant coursework that can lead to industry certification and then also college credit for high school students. This CAPE Act really focuses on providing a means for students to earn industry certifications considered critical to Florida employers. And students are trying to earn these certifications. They don't pay examination costs, for example, in high school, nor do they need to schedule the examination or arrange for transportation to that examination site. The school kind of handles everything for them as part of this initiative. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So for the audience who may not be familiar or may not have much experience with industry certifications, can you just let us know, what do students have to do to earn them? Is it kind of a similar year-long process to, say, an AP exam where they kind of take a test at the end of the year? Or just walk us through that process briefly.
Sure. I mean, there are different kinds of sub-baccalaureate credentials, and industry certifications are one. And industry certification examinations are developed by industry associations and different businesses. And so they set the standards for what the skills are in that area, and they create the examinations that that students will take. Unlike AP, where the College Board is creating all of it, we have different vendors, different people. So for something like Photoshop or Illustrator, well, that's an Adobe, created certification. So anybody could take certifications exams that wants to, but because this is part of the school program, students need to take prerequisite courses for any certification that they want. So they take the courses for the certification that they want. Then they have to take the vendor administered certification exam.
Gotcha. Okay. And yeah, it sounds like that's a really important distinction to make, whereas something like an AP course is determined, that exam is College Board, but an industry certification, the parameters around that are actually generated from industries themselves, right?
That's right.
Great.
That's right. But Florida Department of Education decides which certifications count, which,
Okay.
I mean, they just won't, fund willy-nilly any exam people want to take. It's got to be attainable by secondary school students. It's got to be linked to Florida industries and jobs, and review. And so these are reviewed and set. There were about 200 different certification exams in this program. But they review and decide which ones are appropriate for the students to choose.
Okay. So is it a pretty broad spectrum of certifications? Because if they want it to be relevant for jobs in Florida, does it kind of cover the whole spectrum, or are they more concentrated in, say, one industry sector over another, just in your opinion?
It shifts a little bit from year to year, but there are basically 12 career clusters within which one could earn a certification. The most popular are arts, AV tech and communication, IT, health sciences, architecture and construction, and hospitality and tourism. But there's also transportation, manufacturing, public safety. I mean, so there are a lot of different ones, but those five are the most popular, most frequently taken in Florida.
Great. Just a reminder, if any questions come up in the audience, feel free to type them in the chat and we'll try to get Beth's input on them right away. But maybe moving on then a bit, Beth, let's talk about some of those students that are earning industry certifications in Florida. Your work has produced a really just wonderfully informative, educator-facing, educator-friendly webpage on this topic. And I'm actually going to drop the link for that in the chat now if anyone would like to bookmark that or check it out later. But yeah, in terms of the research and just what you're finding, what should we know about the students that are earning industry certifications in the state of Florida?
Well, right now, a little over a quarter of Florida high school students earn a certification at some point in high school. It's about 28% of students. So this is, a widely used program. A lot of students are doing it. In many ways, it mirrors what we see in CTE course taking, where boys are more likely to do it than girls. And that's actually the biggest gap in terms of demographic groups right now. CTE students are more likely to pursue this than other students, but students who are not on the CTE track do. It's you don't have to be a CTE student to do it. But most of them are, and about 2/3 of the schools that responded to my survey of schools, of Florida high schools, said that they did promote to CTE students
Okay.
specifically.
Okay, so there is some overlap, but not necessarily do you have to be in CTE to go after an industry
No.
certification, nor would the data suggest that. That's correct?
That's right.
Okay. Okay. I see some folks typing in the chat, so I'll see if any questions cut up. Okay, yeah. Karsten's asking, could this be considered like a pre-apprenticeship and industry certification?
I thought about it that way. I mean, I guess I mean, it's a way of getting identifiable skills, and these are skills that, unlike a CTE course where you could take Carpentry 3, and maybe that means this and maybe that means that, depending on what school you're in, what district in. If you pass the Carpentry 3 exam, any employer anywhere would kind of know what that means. And so I think it does that. It doesn't involve working, though, with the companies
Okay.
that are doing it. So it's not any kind of job-based training. It's just getting a job-based skill.
Okay, so the skills are outlined by industry professionals, but unlike an internship or some other type of work-based learning, you're not necessarily working directly with those employers on those
No,
skills.
that's
Okay.
not part of it. Mm-mm.
Gotcha. Okay, and then Jimmy's also asking, how is the business community involved once students earn their certification? Is there anything you can speak to there?
Some districts do work with local businesses, as an advisory board. Hey, what certification should we be giving? What should we be doing for this kind of thing? And getting some inputs there. But there's not a direct relationship between the businesses. They don't necessarily promise that if you get so many health sciences, if you can get some phlebotomy, then we'll, but I mean, it's not like that. So, but they, again, would recognize the certification and know this is a local person who went to this high school and they got this certification that would help them in the job.
Okay, great, great. And then one more question as well. Do you happen to know the percentage of students or rough maybe estimation of students who actually get a job in that certification area after high school? Is there any data like that?
I wish I did. I wish I did. But the Florida State data has been wonderful to work with. I can follow students from 8th grade through 2- and 4-year colleges. However, employment data are not part of their state longitudinal data system. And I haven't been able to link the students' education to workforce data. So I don't know for sure. I wish I did.
Sounds great. Let me see, one more question here from Lou. How do these certifications differ from regular college degree or micro-credentials offered by 4-year institutions? Any insight there?
How do they differ from?
Regular college degrees or micro-credentials?
Well, they're, as I said, although the school is facilitating the program and the education department is paying for the program, it's not embedded in the a school like a school. I think in a lot of ways it is kind of like a micro credential because you get, this Microsoft Office specialist certification, and you have that credential that goes with you when you're out of school in the future too.
Great. Great questions coming in from the audience. Keep them coming if you have any. Let me pose a question to you, Beth, just about some of your research in general that might spark some other areas of discussion. Now that we know just a little more about certifications and the students completing in them, let's take a deep dive into some of the results you're actually finding there as well. Let's start that you have results in high school and then also results after high school, what might be happening for students there. And your work has indicated that students who earn industry certifications while they're in high school tend to have things like fewer absences from high school, tended to earn more credits in 12th grade than perhaps non-industry certification seeking students, and also had higher rates just generally of high school graduation. Are there any insights as to why this might be the case, or just anything we should know about those results in general that you'd want to share out?
You know, it was funny. When this started, there were some naysayers who said, oh, no, no, no. If a high school student gets an industry certification, a recognized credential, they won't care about school anymore. They have the
So
credential.
kind of
Why do they need the
distracting.
diploma? Right? That was what people were saying. But no, the opposite is true. They're more engaged with school when they get this credential. And the reason, I think, is that they get a much better understanding of possible future work
Sure.
that they could do, how it's their life. I mean, instead of saying, oh, science, I'm not going to be a chemist in a lab coat. Ugh, I don't want to do that. But they realize, like, you could be an EMT. You could save lives. You could be, you could get a health science certificate and really make a difference in people's lives with doing that. And oh, well, I'm going to stay in school and I'm going to do that. And I think it just gave some people a stronger a sense of their future, what they could
Yeah.
do. And so it really has been a benefit for high school
Yeah.
students to do it.
That's kind of the same argument for work-based learning as well, like working with an industry partner, right? It contextualizes what you're learning so that you can apply it for your future. And yeah, I think people underestimate how excited students get about stuff like that. Because the world after high school at that point, it's kind of it's mystified. You don't really know what to expect. But if you can help students think about their future, either through pursuing an industry certification or some kind of work-based learning, it might help kind of break that mysticism down, right? And like give it a little
I
more
think it
concrete
does.
skills.
I think it does. I also expect that, this is a challenging thing to take an exam that may have been designed for adults in the workforce. This is not required to pass your CTE class. It's an extra thing, like an AP exam is. It's an extra thing. And I think, that really helps your self-confidence to
Sure.
tackle something like that. I think you feel better about yourself in school, when you take on this kind of challenge too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I would expect.
I think so too. Because yeah, like you were saying, you may not be crazy about an anatomy course you may be taking, but when you realize you can save someone's life by being an EMT, maybe it takes on that much more meaning. Yeah, and
Yeah.
boosts your own
Yeah,
self-confidence.
I'm the
Yeah,
kind of person who could do that,
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah.
You also indicated in your research as well that industry certification earners were more likely than non-earners to enroll in 2- and 4-year colleges after high school graduation. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. They are more likely to enroll in 2- and 4-year colleges. In many ways, this is the same pattern with CTE specialists in high school. They're more likely to go to a 2-year college, but not 4. Industry certification students are. And we found that they were more likely to go to 2- and/or 4-year colleges, and it didn't matter whether they were boys or girls, whether they were eligible for free lunch or not, whether they were black or white, it didn't matter. This relationship persists across all groups of students. I mean, this is powerful.
Yeah.
And we found that it persists across most of the career clusters. It's the same in architecture and construction and IT and health sciences. The one that's different is hospitality. And
Okay.
that's less likely to go to four-year college, but more likely to do a two-year degree. And again, they may see the jobs really don't call for a four-year college that they want. And
Sure.
so, but it really is a strong relationship. Now, there are some certifications in Florida that give students the potential for college credit at the two-year college level. And that may help some students, kind of again start thinking about college. Oh, I
Sure.
can get a college credit also if I take this. And so, so I think that's really part of the thing. And what's interesting is we found that students were more likely to get both 2 and 4-year degrees as well. It's not just that they enroll,
Okay, so that they
they see it through.
persist and
They see
then
it
get
through.
that
They get
degree.
degrees.
Interesting,
They're more
fascinating.
likely to get 2 and 4-year degrees than
Wow.
non-members.
I want to hit on there is a question from Jimmy, but Jimmy, we'll actually address that question in a few minutes. I want to spend another minute on the results here, so that's why I thumbed you up, because we will get to that question, don't worry. But you also indicated, Beth, that these trends kind of persist across gender, across race and ethnic groups, and at NAF, a lot of the work we're trying to do is to provide an equitable pathway forward for students to enter either college or a career with a livable wage after high school. So this is really encouraging. These findings just generally are really encouraging to me, how you saw that pattern persists over racial and ethnic groups, gender, and a little bit to the career cluster as well. Anything else you can tell us about that?
Well, yeah, I think that again, I wish I had the employment piece of it, so that I knew that as well. I also would like to know whether people stay in the same study area
Sure.
as they studied in high school. And it may be that you study something and this is it, this is me, and you do it. And it may be um, that you realize you don't want to do that and you
Yep.
focus on something else. But again, I think you know yourself a little bit better and you know the world a little bit better. I think the 4-year result is interesting because it's different from the CTE path. And I think this is because many of the certifications that you can earn through the Florida program have been more generalist certifications like Microsoft Office,
Okay.
Adobe Photoshop. I mean, that can be any number of jobs,
Yeah,
any
used
number of
everywhere.
industries, whereas other certifications are more, you know, an HVAC certification, public safety certification. I mean, that is really focusing you on specific jobs. And I'm looking right now into whether the more general certification people are actually the ones that go to a 4-year college, and the more specific certification people are the ones that go to a 2-year college, and they're really focused on a certain job. I think some students just, hey, I'm going to work on the yearbook, so I'm going to take these Adobe certifications so I can do that. I mean, it may not be
Sure.
for a job that they do these general ones, you
Sure.
know,
Sure.
and so that may be why they just see as a skill something on their resume, and then they apply to college,
Hmm.
for that. So it may not
Yeah.
be specifically job focused.
That makes sense. But it's still skills that you will use potentially in a future
Yeah,
job. Even like I use Microsoft Office every day. I'm sure you
sure.
use Excel every day and stuff like that. So yeah, still very valuable. Let's talk about those community college goers there for a second. You had indicated that in your research, the certification earners were more likely to enroll immediately after high school. And then you said also to persist into a second year of
Mhm.
community college and then to attain a degree. As I mentioned, that's a really strong, really positive result. And it's wonderful to know that and the work you're doing isn't necessarily even causal, right? Though that's an association, right,
It's an
between
association.
industry
Yeah.
certification and getting to those. But still, that's a wonderful association. Is there anything else in terms of industry certification for those community college goers? You said career cluster plays a little bit more of a role there. Anything else we should know about that general landscape, just that we haven't hit on already?
I will point out that this is a quasi-experimental study.
Oh, great.
It meets What Works Clearinghouse standards for a study. And that means that we did a pretty good job of
Yeah.
isolating the effect of getting a certification on these outcomes. We used matching to identify non-earners who are a lot like the earners, except that they didn't get the certification. And so,
Okay.
although it is not causal, it's really pretty
Really
strong
close. Yeah.
at isolating the effect of the industry certification.
Yeah.
I think students in the community college, again, I think they have a much better idea of what they want to do
Right.
when they get there than the non-earners do. They know what it would be like. They know, gee, with this certification and associate's degree, I could get these kinds of jobs, and they're much. I mean, I think that explains why they enroll right away. It's not like, well, maybe I can get a job, maybe I should go on in school. I think they're just more focused on their future, and they see the pathway to get it.
Gotcha. How about those four-year college goers and their degree attainment? Any interesting findings you want to share with us there that we haven't already talked about?
I think we've really covered kind of the key findings. I
Okay.
think that some students get certifications because they just see it as a credential that they can get that, will be valuable to college exam readers and things. And so I think for them, it's kind of more part of just preparing themselves to be um, marketable in a different way.
Sure. Sure. Get them thinking about their future still, yeah, and what they could bring to that table, yeah, in the
Yeah,
future.
and again, I think just a sense of confidence, which again you can get from different pathways, AP or other things. You've challenged yourself, you've taken on these extra things, and you can do it. So you're ready, for the next thing.
Absolutely. So those are just great results in general, and the work is still ongoing, right? It's not quite
Yes,
finished yet.
not
All right,
quite.
great. I'm looking forward to the rest of the results when they come out. I also want to address some of the best practices around promoting some of these industry certifications. And Jimmy, this will hit on your question, kind of this next topic that we're going to dive into as well. But you had mentioned in your research, as part of this research, you had interviewed 8 Florida district leads and kind of sent out a statewide survey to districts and to high schools to inquire about what they were doing in their school to promote industry certifications for their students. When looking over some of those results from the interviews and the surveys, it was mentioned that schools in Florida had a few different strategies for encouraging students to earn industry certifications. Things like sending out information directly to a student's home about the certification program, placing information on the school's website, advertising on social media about the industry certifications, announcing those opportunities to earn certifications at things like school assemblies and other well-attended school events, and then also recognizing and celebrating those students that receive those industry certifications. So those are just a few of the strategies that some of the educators told you about. But for our educators listening here on the call or who may see the video afterwards, what did you find that just generally teachers said worked best when trying to kind of promote, a culture of industry certifications in their high school or district?
Well, what we asked them, to whom do you promote certifications? And it could be everybody. I said, I think it could be CTE students. It could be students who have a certain grades, or students who have a certain attendance, or they could, different things. And including everybody is associated with having a higher certification rate at your school. It is. Inviting more people to do it, saying this is really for you too, does really make a difference in terms of the number of certifications. Another thing, which isn't a promotion strategy per se, but is a management strategy. If a school had strong leadership, a dedicated person
Mm.
who was able to foster the whole program. So you didn't have this teacher working with this vendor and scheduling that, and this teacher working with that to schedule that. If you had one person who was managing the whole program, the program went better and they can do
Lot
more
smoother.
with it.
Yeah.
And I think it's harder for maybe smaller schools or more disadvantaged schools to have somebody that can do that. But this is a complicated program. And it's, again, more complicated than the AP, where you just have to deal with a college board. I mean, you have to deal with all these different vendors and all these different things. And so I think some exams may require special equipment. You have to go off campus, and some, I mean, just all kinds of things. And so I think having a dedicated leader who says what the goals are for taking and passing exams in that school really does help incentivize things. Promoting the certifications widely is also helpful. I mean, hearing the recognition that this is something kids do, I could do it too. I mean, it's just these kinds of promotions do. But strong leadership is also associated with reducing equity gaps in terms of who's getting the certifications. Girls are more likely to do it, and ethnic minorities are more likely to do it. And so I think, but promoting the program at school and outside of school via websites. So it's relatively inexpensive to do, and it does
Yeah.
make a difference. I mean, it's harder to get set up the leader, but it's worth it. But that's something we can do, is try to communicate better, because people may not know, their parents may not understand it, and so to get the word out about what this is and how it can help really has made a difference in the high certification schools.
Yeah, that's very similar to some of the stuff we try to help schools with their work-based learning as well. Like, we try to recommend, if they can, have a dedicated person for that, because just the level of coordination, if it's one person trying to do it all rather than each educator or whoever doing it individually, can just make it run that much smoother. Quick question. I wanted to also ask about the infrastructure. Kind of like, some industry certifications may require specific technology or equipment. So how did schools indicate that they maybe got around that barrier, if it was a barrier?
Well, we asked them about that. And I mean, sometimes they have to get the kids into a bus and go to the community college and use the facilities there, or something like that. They have to arrange for it if they don't have the technology. And some industry have places where you go to take their exam, and so they have to they arrange for the transportation to do that.
Okay, and that's part of the CAPE Act, right? The schools get funding for that, to do that? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Schools also in Florida get points in the school report card for the percentage of students who are earning certifications, and it's treated the same way. It has the same amount of weight as an AP exam. So schools also have an incentive to promote it for themselves, because we all want to do well in the school report card. And so we do. And so I think that's another benefit of the policy, because once the state did that, the number of certifications skyrocketed.
Okay.
Schools really were willing to do more to invest in it.
Once it became part of the metric that the state was interested in, sounds like
they
it
realized,
really boosted
this
it.
is not just something that's nice to do. This is important. And in our survey, which about 80% of high schools and districts responded to, 95% of them said they were offering some kind of certifications at their school. Schools bought into it. they're doing it. Every district said they had it. They did it. This is a successful program. It was adopted statewide.
Yeah. I want to, I see someone typing a question there on the chat. We will, if you have a question, we will answer it, but let me pose another one to you really quick, maybe in the meantime. Sure. You mentioned that some of those promotion strategies are pretty low cost, right? Like mentioning it at an assembly, mentioning it over social media, but the impact it could have on students is financially very valuable for their future, like earning college credit or starting a journey on a new career path, for example. And your research really indicated that those schools that had a high percentage of students earning industry certification, they really emphasized the direct link between certification and a path to a better future for their students. So in a way, part of the success of schools when it came to getting students interested in industry certification was to highlight that financial implication and that skill implication in their future.
Well, here's, if I may, we asked in our survey, why do you promote the certifications that you do? And the high poverty schools, which these days are doing more certifications than the more affluent schools, they got the message that this is a pathway maybe for their kids who maybe can't afford to go to 4-year and whatnot. So they got it. But they do it. They said the reasons they did it was because of job skills. The reason they did it was because of demand from local employers. The reason they did it was potential college credit. The more affluent schools were much more likely to say, well, we offer the certifications we do because that's what the kids like.
Okay, so no input from the
so they're
employment community?
They're not doing that. So, but these other schools, they are doing it. And these are the high poverty schools where more students probably don't assume that they're going to go to a 4-year college. And maybe in the more affluent schools, people are kind of thinking, but you could also get a certification. Which ones do you like? Well, I'm going to do Adobe, but it's not, it's not the same emphasis.
Not the same level
so different
of input.
Schools have different motivations for the way they promote it.
Yeah. As part of a NAF academy within a traditional high school, that academy tends to have a body called an advisory board, and that advisory board is made up of local volunteers from local businesses around the school or around that community. And those advisory boards are really trying to bridge the gap between getting students internships, or other work-based learning. That sounds like, because I'm curious where the input from the community was coming on those more disadvantaged schools, where they were getting that input. Because in a NAF academy, the advisory board sounds like a great place to get input on what industry certifications might be most relevant to the immediate career landscape.
It's really up to principals and maybe CTE leads in the district to decide to do that. There's nothing in the policy that says they have to. And some do. Some choose to do that. Others don't.
Okay. So yeah, there was no set pathway for the schools to get input from their local career, like landscape, the local economy.
No.
Okay.
Some do it though.
Okay. We're getting near the end of our talk here, so I wanted to make sure we open it up for any questions that the audience have. You have all been great, kind of inserting questions as we've been going. But if anyone, let me actually turn off. I'll let folks come off of mute if you want to share your screen or come off mute and ask Beth a question directly. So let me hit allow mics and allow cameras. All right, so yeah, if anyone would like to, please feel free. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep shooting questions at Beth, so no worries. But yeah, this is a lot of actionable research, some good strategies for promoting those industry certifications, some good research around it as well. What do you see being kind of next that you want to investigate as this work continues? What's next on your agenda?
Well, I really would like to know more detail about the college experiences of people who earn certifications.
Okay.
And you know, and also I'd like to see more states in the past 5 or 6 years. I think more states have enacted policies. Maybe not specifically like CAPE with the certifications, but emphasizing kind of career and college pathway and really doing more. So yes, you could do a dual enrollment college class, or you could do a dual enrollment CTE class in the community college, or you could do, and so I would like to know a little bit more about what other states are are doing too.
Okay.
Because I think, I mean, you know, Texas has a similar program now.
Ah.
You know, I mean, there are other, Maryland has a similar program. I mean, so there's other states kind of trying to do this. And so just to see what's happening elsewhere as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I mentioned to you just in one of our talks and one of our get-togethers leading up to this, Texas has a pretty robust state education database where they do tie in career and
Yes, they do.
wage outcomes. So that if you're interested in that, since Florida doesn't necessarily link it, I
Mhm.
might pitch that as the next site you may want to examine. We have a question here from Kathy, actually. Kathy Hughes, what does this cost the state of Florida, assuming the state pays for all of these certification exams? Any data or numbers on that?
You know, they've never given me that. They've given me that. It comes from different places, though. I mean, it comes from Perkins funding as well as other. So I mean, they're kind of different buckets of money that um, you know, go into it. And then schools, as I said, they're in the report card for it, so then they get more resources to do more going forward.
Yeah, and then
But I don't know.
Colleen kind of followed up on that point, kind of just saying what you just said. Florida also gives schools money for students who earn credentials, but then teachers also get like $50 per
They can
student
get a
as well.
bonus. Yeah, I mean
Nice.
that's a policy that's kind of come and gone. I mean that's not been a steady thing, whereas the school report card thing's been around about 10 years. So
Okay.
that's there. Yeah.
But so the state, I mean, that's like an incentive. Well, it comes after the fact, so I guess, but it is an incentive in a way
Yeah.
if they want to.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Huh.
And it is work. I mean, that in Florida, to teach to a certification, you yourself have to have the
The
certification that you're
certification,
teaching
right.
to.
Yeah.
So,
right.
I mean, another
Right.
this is another structure question. Answer to that is like you've got to have qualified staff. You've got to be able to teach, and the schools that don't have a lot of qualified teachers can't offer as many certifications. They just don't have the staff to do it. And so, I mean, to have professional development, to have kind of personal time or kind of communities of certification trainers across the district who could support each other. I mean, there are a lot of ways I think that we could enhance the supports for teachers.
Yeah.
Can I ask another follow-up to the?
Absolutely.
So I know you've looked at the percent that pass the certifications, because not all the students who take the test pass the test and the certification. But have you looked at that like by career field or by high school, just kind of broken that down to understand that a bit more? I wonder if some certs are harder than others. Or,
I'm sure they are.
yeah.
I haven't. What we get is the final score.
Mhm.
So we don't know who failed and retook and then
Okay.
passed.
Okay.
We also don't know who failed and retook and then failed. We only get one record per certification attempt. So it looks like about 75% passed, but I bet it's lower than that. But that's retake. And Florida does have a policy, a statewide policy about retaking the exams. And different districts can put more on it. You know, you have to do a pretest, you have to do so many hours, you know, I mean, they can do things to do that. So I don't really we haven't looked too much at that. But it's an important question. It's an important question, and I'm sure that some exams are harder. Again, some of them are potentially college credit, so you would think that those would be the more,
the more
higher
difficult.
level exam.
Right, sure. Thank you. I'm going to keep following your study.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the ones that are potential college credit, those are in every single career cluster has some of those. So
Okay.
it's not just the IT, it's across the board here.
Okay, across the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Every has some.
So there's more a comment here from Sean. There are some certifications from Dr. Parker that are some certifications that we have students get, such as Google Analytics, that educators do not have to get certified to teach. Oh, any info on that? Yeah. So those teachers, it sounds like Dr. Parker, aren't necessarily potentially certified themselves.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hey.
Dr. Parker, Spruce High School, Dallas, Texas. How y'all doing? Yeah, just
Okay,
kind of.
how are you?
One of my questions was going to be, but you already answered it, about how the teachers how the system or the schools was getting qualified or certified educators to teach those certifications who was not qualified. And I just kind of want to comment that here in Dallas, some things as Google Analytics, teachers don't have to be qualified or certified in Google to teach those. And for us here in Dallas, they do count toward our CCMRS and those points like you was talking about for the school as well. So I'm not for sure if Florida is doing this, but this is one if you want to kind of take to them and they can use as well.
That's good to know. Yeah, I mean, Florida may be, or may have been more, nope, you got to do it no matter what, and that may be something that they're going to change over time. I don't know, but they expect you to walk the walk if you're going to talk the talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. That also kind of brings up a question I had about during the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. There's been especially a lot of just teacher burnout, and teacher retention has been a real issue. Is there any insights on teachers that are teaching for those certifications? Do they tend to, have a better retention rate, or is that something that kind of keeps them in their job, or any insight on that? I was just kind of curious.
I don't know. My high school data collection stopped in 2019. And so I don't know. I know a little bit about post-secondary during the COVID, but I don't know how this affected. I haven't looked directly and haven't done a follow-on survey or anything like that to find out. But it's certainly an important question. And I know that Florida is reevaluating the program now. I think they'd like to offer fewer of the more general certifications like Microsoft Office and focus more on the job specific ones than they have been. And they're really looking at which ones are most valuable in the economy. So they are looking at employment after and job demand after the certification. So Florida's, I think the program is going to be there, but I think they're tweaking it a bit now. Mm-hmm.
Great. Just learning from best practices and trying to make it better, hopefully. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
We're right at about 2 minutes. Beth, is there anything else our audience should walk away kind of thinking about or knowing about that you would like them to know about industry certifications, either in their own school or in Florida, or any kind of last minute thoughts you would like to impart for our audience?
I think this work shows how important it is to identify and promote sub-baccalaureate credentials like industry certifications in your schools, and help students find pathways. I mean, the 4-year degree is a wonderful thing. I loved it myself, but there are other pathways that people can do, and there's such a job demand now. I think employment demand for people with these sub-baccalaureate, but students may not know. And so I think you can help them find, and give them opportunities to learn more about the world of work and see what they can do, the options that are there for them.
I love it. Yeah, path forward. Yeah, I love it. That may not necessarily be 2-year, 4-year, but sub-baccalaureate as well. Yeah. I always ask our guests just in the closing moments, how can our network stay up to date on your research, what you're doing? I dropped the website in there earlier, but are you posting any results on Twitter or Instagram or, anything like that you would want our network to be aware of?
I have a Twitter account and LinkedIn accounts, and I'm active in both of those places. I think I gave you my info, Nick. If not, I'll give it to you. So
can you drop it here in the chat again? And I will also post it like when we post this video. Do you have access to the chat? It should be a button there at the top. Or you could tell me, and I'll tell folks. What's your your Twitter?
Yeah, I'll make sure you have that.
Okay, no worries. But yeah, we're pretty much right at the hour. Thank you very much, Beth, just for joining us today and sharing your wealth of knowledge and your findings on industry certifications. I really am appreciative for you taking an hour of your time just to let us know more about your research.
Thank you so much for having me. I really am glad to be able to share this with you. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. Come consider this an open invitation. If you have more results you want to let us know about, and come on another time, when the study wraps or when you're doing something else potentially.
I'd love to.
But yeah, great. Consider it an open invitation.
Okay.
Just as a reminder too to the audience, we will be posting the recording of this talk on YouTube, as well as our NAF Educator Facebook page and our Research and Tech LinkedIn page. So you can check it out there and forward it to anyone else you think might be interested. But thanks again, Beth, and have a good rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks. You all do too. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for everyone in the audience.